Conversations.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like a surprise.
Yes.
It really hit like a morning in April, you know. Welcome to Conversation. Pleasure to welcome to the program, dear friend of mine personally and of the world, a really nice, a good fellow who's also very bright and has a great program. That being John Bredin. He's what is it? The Public Voice Salon.
Yes.
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 And it's a really good program that's getting better all the time. And John, it's so good to welcome you to the set. And Claudia.
Thank you.
That's his wife, his lovely wife who does editing and so forth and helps hold it together. Yeah.
Indeed.
Great team. Yeah.
Thank you, Harold. Thank you. And your leadership and your example has been exemplary, you know, for us over the years. And we're just trying to do what we can to build on this example that you've set of open dialogue, of analysis of what's going on in the political situation and economic and cultural, and try to manifest an optimistic spirit for a better world.
And you got yourself pegged as an educator because you've done that, and you've also you're also an intellectual, which is a proud thing in my way of thinking. And you're also very sociable. And you have this salon idea, which Gertrude Stein, you say, you channel Gertrude Stein's idea of having a salon and talking about issues of culture and so forth. And it's your series is really good, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah. I particularly was taken with that one you did with a film fellow.
Foster Hirsch.
You are really familiar with film.
And
you've got a lot of understanding and knowledge behind what you do when you get in front of a camera. Yeah.
Thank you. My father was a projectionist.
Was that right?
So I grew up watching movies, you know, for free.
Yeah. Good price. Huh?
There you go.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so, so basically, you know, all of the arts are important to me in terms of my pedagogy also as a teacher, as an educator. I went to a very, very wonderful program at NYU in the mid-90s.
Was it Tisch, or was it Tisch?
It wasn't Tisch, it was the School of Education.
Okay.
Yeah, and the particular program that I went to was the School of English Education that was founded in 1938 by a woman named Louise Rosenblatt, who was a pioneer of the connection between democracy and education.
Wow.
She wrote a book in 1938 called Literature as Exploration, which made the argument that the way texts are discussed in a literature class has an impact on the quality of a democracy.
I would think so.
If it's an open discourse, if people are allowed to express their viewpoints and argue, but in a rational, calm way, different perspectives, there's a learning process that goes on. There's a transaction that happens between the reader and the text, but then it's a conversation that goes out to the people. That then it's in the same way that you discuss or deliberate a political situation. That's how a classroom is set up in a democratic way. Now, if you look at it, our educational system today, it's the complete opposite.
Wow.
It's become autocratic. Where students are sitting passively, just receiving the information, taking high-stakes standardized tests.
Yeah, all kinds of testing. Yeah.
So this program I went to at NYU was a radical program that was really critical of the status quo. We read John Dewey. We read Paulo Freire.
Oh, right,
so
Brazil. Yeah,
Brazilian educator. So I think we need more of that in our educational system today. We need some more criticism and critique. I mean, this is the night that they're having the Republican primary.
Yeah, right.
Which
First
has
one. Mr. Bush in the state of in the leader's chair.
Well,
I mean not Bush. I mean Mr. Trump.
Mr. Trump.
Yeah.
And you know.
It could be on the Comedy Channel.
It could be. It could be. Well, Jon Stewart tonight is his last show.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on in media. On this propitious night that we're together, Harold. But I love it how you create space for authentic dialogue and discourse and sharing. You don't cut to a commercial. There's no sound bites here.
Well, isn't it wonderful we're in public access where we don't have to?
Yes.
It's a major thing when you can get where you can do production and so forth and not have to be thinking about the bottom, the money.
Yes.
It's a wonderful thing, a wonderful chance for people of intellect or of interest in trying to improve things or otherwise, or just autodidactically inclined people who would like to have a thing like a salon take advantage of it. It seems to me that's you.
Thank you.
You're doing a very good job of that, and it's really good to have you aboard, as they say, and everything. Your background, you got some people in the theater in your background, in your family, and so forth. Maybe we could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. My grandmother.
And we've got to get a good word in for the one that really makes it possible, Claudia.
My wife, Claudia.
De Colombia.
She is wonderful.
Yes, she is.
She's fabulous, and she always.
You're a lucky fellow. I hope you recognize that.
I do.
Good.
Yes. Yes. Cornel West says, "I am who I am because somebody loved me."
Yeah.
And
there's something to be said for that.
That's true. Before I embarked on my teaching career, this was in the mid-'90s. I discovered the work of Leo Buscaglia.
I don't know.
He wrote books about love, popular books about love.
Big subject.
Yeah. And he used to get on the Johnny Carson show. He used to get on, major media.
Yeah.
And I remember he used to give Johnny Carson a big hug.
Yeah.
He was this Italian guy, very warm-hearted.
Oh, they're warm.
And he would go to give Johnny a hug, and at first Johnny was like a little bit, he's Midwestern and Anglo background. It took him a while to get used to the hug. But Leo Buscaglia then taught me that love is it's an intellectual.
Personally, or just from a distance?
From his books,
from
reading his books, and he kind of sent me off on my own kind of a scholarly pursuit of love as a topic of discussion, and then as a pedagogical concept as well. Paulo Freire says we need to teach for a world in which it's easier to love. Right?
Absolutely.
I can't think of any
wisdom,
better thing. And so, Claudia came into my life at a time when, she had belief in my big dreams, which of having a TV show, of transferring my pedagogical work from the classroom to a wider audience.
That's when you first got the idea of the People's Salon?
Of the public.
With a camera.
With a camera.
Well, you were doing that before you had the camera attached to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
okay,
I created my first salon I created in 2002 in a used bookstore.
Was that
Hoboken, New Jersey,
Hoboken,
called Symposia Bookstore, and with the wonderful couple from Romania, Carmen and Cornel Rousseau, husband and wife couple, both have a background in social work, psychology, and education. And the three of us created this open dialogue that was weekly, every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, open to the public, sitting in a circle, and we facilitated this dialogue, and it would be about what's happening in the community, what's happening in the society. So it was a democratic discourse, and I think
you didn't have a topic or something.
No, there was no topic. The topic is what's going on.
Okay.
What's going on?
Okay, right.
A good salon doesn't need a topic. See, a good salon, Gertrude Stein never had topics. People show up and talk about what you're working on. So if you have thinkers and intellectuals and artists who are working on stuff, they share their work, but then you can always circle back to the issues of the day.
A salon is different than a saloon.
Right. Yes.
But a saloon can be a salon.
It could be a salon, yes.
Right.
A little bit of alcohol can always be helpful,
Well, lots of times,
loosening people up, you know.
But that's good. Yeah, then you got that idea yourself to do that. And what you studied educate. You were an educator. You taught at universities or colleges and high school.
I've been teaching now for 20 years.
Oh, really?
I began teaching in elementary as a substitute teacher. I would just come in there cold and just sort of take over when the regular teacher was out. That was in Hoboken in the mid-1990s.
Is that Frank Sinatra's hometown?
Yes, of course it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Frank Sinatra was great.
It's his 100th birthday this year.
No,
and Hoboken is having a whole big celebration going on.
He was a piece of work, man.
Well, he had big dreams too.
I know it's hard for you to believe because you've been there a couple of times with my dog and that, and you heard me and everything. But he was as good as me in the shower singing. I know it's hard for you to imagine.
Oh, in the shower. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I've actually sang in my classrooms as well. Do you know my first school that I subbed at was called Demarest. It's still there. It's a middle school in Hoboken. Yeah.
Is that an actor named Demarest?
Well, Demarest, William Demarest. Yeah, was an actor. Yeah. But Demarest Middle School in Hoboken is famous for being a high school where Frank Sinatra went.
Oh, really?
So I had that link to Sinatra's biography, that his old high school was my first school that I taught at. But I think with Sinatra, what's interesting is you get the working class kid who has a big dream, who follows through, who manifests that, who brings the gift of music to the world. And what does he sing about? Mostly love. Songs that people can relate to.
Right.
And but he did have a lot of chutzpah too. He had a lot of moxie.
Yeah.
And he had that. He was a great actor as well. Lots of great movies.
And he used to have good narrow ties. I'm trying to get ties. You can't get any narrow. I want ties thin. Like Humphrey Bogart. And Frank Sinatra, and there are all these fat ties. You can't get a nice thin tie like Frank Sinatra. If you see one, grab it for me, okay?
I certainly will.
Because I think that's the way it's going to go. I think that's.
Okay.
I keep hoping it's going to go that way. I'm not a fashion plate.
You're not you don't follow.
But I would like those narrow ties like they had. The Frank Sinatra and all those people. They had these narrow ties, and like Ocean's 11. They all had narrow ties. You notice?
You want to be in the rat? You want to be in the Rat Pack?
I wouldn't mind.
Can we start a rat pack of
M&M
talk show hosts? The M&M Rat Pack?
Maybe, yeah.
And you'll be our Sinatra.
Or Broadway Danny Rose, maybe.
That's right. That's right.
Anyway, so good. And so you got going like that, and then when did you pick up the camera or get the idea of let's put this together? There is public access in Jersey, right?
Sure.
Did you get involved there? And you're certainly it's certainly good for you're here and all that, but but you're on. You've got a television presence as a major, and I think you could really do really well that way because you're so good. You're so presentable on the camera and everything, and also you got a good head on your shoulders.
Thank you. I think it's really just about taking a risk, and bringing it out to a larger public. But it's realizing that we have serious problems in our society, in our democracy, and I have firsthand evidence of that in my classrooms when I see that my students are just very unknowledgeable about history, about politics, about what's going on. So the lack of education, the miseducation that's going on, the inability to have a conversation that we're seeing manifested throughout the culture now, that people can't carry on a dialogue. And so being an educator and creating these pedagogical spaces that for me are very nurturing and warm and happy and dialogical and interesting and growthful. Growth is very important to me. Human growth, psychological growth, pedagogical growth. I think psychoanalysis is something that feeds into my work. I was a student, am still a student of Carl Rogers.
Oh yeah, Carl Rogers
work
was great.
Of growth, of becoming. I met a wonderful man who was a mutual friend of ours, Reverend Joseph Ben David.
I love Ben David.
And guess where I met him, Harold?
I don't know.
At your house.
Could be.
I met him at your house.
Friends from way back. He's a very interesting guy, Czechoslovak.
I love him, and he's 95 years old.
I know.
He knew Martin Buber personally.
He was a representative of Martin Buber, the giant.
My God.
Yeah.
I love Buber, and I'm constantly going back to his texts. Buber, in particular, Between Man and Man, the sacredness of human dialogue.
I and thou?
Yes. Yes. The spiritual. Obvious, it's something that's really inherent in my philosophy and my outlook. And so to create classroom spaces that are dialogical was, for me, something wonderful because I used to be shy. It took me a while to find.
I'm trying to think. Bredin's shy. It doesn't seem to click.
Well,
Claudia brought it out.
Claudia brought it out. Her warmth and her love and her nurturance, of course. But what really, really changed my life was this program at NYU. In English education, founded by Louise Rosenblatt. Very dialogical program. Rosenblatt, she lived to be 100 years old.
Wow, God bless her.
She was one of the major figures in philosophy of education.
And she was a major figure to you, an inspiration.
To me. I never met her, but she retired in the early 70s. But she was a teacher of a man named Gordon Pradle, who was my professor at NYU. So he carried forward Louise Rosenblatt's vision to me, and his book was called Literature for Democracy. He has a chapter called The Dance of Conversation. So a conversation is like a dance or like a jazz symphony. The improvisational nature of discourse is something which is, for me, very interesting. And I think for a democracy to survive, the citizens have to be talking to each other and sharing their thoughts about the problems of the country and also what to do about it. Otherwise, you get a situation where we're in now, which, you know, we have corporate control of media, corporate control of government. We have, you know, the Donald Trump thing, which is interesting to analyze from different angles, you know.
There'll be a lot of that going on tomorrow papers.
A lot of analysis, you know. I mean, he's sort of, you know, people admire him because of his chutzpah.
Yeah.
And he's sort of doing it his way.
On steroids.
And, on steroids, is right. But yet, you know, there's an element there that we have to be careful of, because how knowledgeable is he of politics, of history, you know, with his background mostly in business. And business is only one piece of the puzzle, you know. We need to know things. People need to know things. They need to know about critical things. They need to know about economics and history, philosophy, and I think there's a real deficiency now in our educational system.
You do?
I believe so.
Okay, in general terms and specifics, or what?
Well,
I mean, I've been away from schools for a long time, you know, but
I think they're given short shrift to the humanities.
Okay.
Now this is you know, I think that the business major has become the most popular major over the past 30 years, and if you study
Harvard Business School,
business and marketing, you're not going to get the kind of philosophical knowledge, the kind of, you know, appreciation for the arts, for literature, and also for empathy, and for compassion, and for community.
Those things don't sell well in the marketing world. You know, I mean, those are things that don't. Why is the world gone that way? Let's say if we were to go back, you're younger and everything, but if we were to go back to the days of Woodstock, or back to an idealistic moment. There was a moment there when there was a lot of love was loose in the world, and that sort of thing and everything. And we seem to have gotten, you think we've gotten away from that toward what, practical, money-oriented? Is that what it is? Or, and why the drift, do you think? And what's the alternative, or what's the prognostication for the patient?
Well, first of all, I think that the status quo elites were very frightened by the revolutionary genie that was coming out of the bottle back in the 1960s and 70s, where you had genuine radical thoughts percolating. You had May of '68 in Paris. You had, you know, genuine, you know, young students were reading Marcuse.
Right.
Who was a wonderful thinker who I read now. I read Marcuse's, you know, One-Dimensional Man, which I discovered only a year ago.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff in
young people were reading this stuff. They were reading this stuff. You had the New Left. You know, you had people like Stanley Aronowitz.
Yeah, I love Stanley.
Isn't he wonderful, Stanley?
He's great.
Shout out to Stanley.
Yeah, absolutely.
He wrote. He was a roommate of Tom Hayden.
I didn't know that.
He was a roommate of Tom Hayden.
Think of here in SDS.
Stanley Aronowitz wrote part of that. He was like an informal advisor on that. And Hayden himself was really, you know, tremendous. And so you had all of that percolating. You had the SDS. You had, and I think what happened was there was a reaction from right-wing conservatives that they wanted to put the kibosh on that. And so
along about 1980, you had a Mr. Reagan invented it, put it into office. You know.
Absolutely.
And the neocons began to appear.
So their propaganda now has sort of promulgated throughout the society. It's convinced people that the free market is the only option.
Yeah, and that's coming off economics from Chicago, I guess. The Chicago school came to prominence. I guess it had been Keynes, that sort of thing. And then, do you think the political context or the cultural context from the political context is informed by economic thinking and changes in that? And economic theorizing is important in that regard?
Absolutely, and I think Marx is a person who ought to be read more. And whether we read Marx in the original, I know he's difficult to read, but there's been a lot of writing about Marx. And
Engels helped.
Engels was a better writer, was he?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think he helped with the language,
Yeah. So, you know, and the fact that Bernie Sanders is running
isn't he great?
So, you know, so strongly in this primary, as a socialist, I think that gives hope for a better world that might be.
Yeah, and it's coming up. It's coming up in the discussion. What does that mean? Socialism. What is socialism, and what does it mean? And that's something that's coming into the fore. We just did a program with this fellow about the Second World War, a major scholar talking about the human condition. He's very pessimistic about it, which is very disquieting to me. That to be pessimistic, there's reason to be, but there's something why it's going that way. I'm not sure, but it seems to be going since about 1980. It's going in a direction where the socialism. If you're talking in economic terms, I don't know what we're talking about really, because I know with I'd love to meet Bernie Sanders. And I like a lot of what our guy and our fellow a producer from Washington that goes on MNN. That's what's his name? The fellow at Hartman, Tom Hartman.
Oh, he's wonderful.
Yeah, and
he's
he has he has for decades, I guess, almost had every Friday brunch with Bernie.
Really?
He's out on his program always. Bernie Sanders been there for a long time.
Terrific.
And they're good, close friends and everything like that. And they talk about it in socialism. But one of the things interesting about him, and so what are we talking about when we talk about socialism? You got you can talk about. I guess you get down. Naomi Klein's written well on economics and so forth, and that. But what are we talking about when we say we want socialism and capitalism? What does it mean? And I guess you got a dialectic between capitalism and socialism. And what does it mean? And how do those things relate in terms of economics between the public sector, which is governmental activity or organization of society, and private sector? Those are two different kind of things that does. And I know Bernie Sanders, Bernie is very interested in the idea, and then that comes around to the idea of ownership, or personal ownership, or personal responsibility, or personal ownership of a capital asset, as opposed to, let's say, having job skills that can earn you income in order to improve your personal or family life and that kind of stuff. So, but he is a great proponent of ownership. That is, Bernie Sanders is a great proponent of ownership. And what's called they're called ESOPs, employee stock ownership plans, but it's for ownership of the masses. Hardcore socialists will say, as they did in the Soviet Union with the nomenclatura and so forth, that, or coming right out of 1848 and hardcore Marx and everything, that private property, and that's private property stock ownership, is an evil institution, and it should be eliminated, and have all power in the government. The government would be good guys who would take care of everybody well, like the people. They were going to get rid of the bad guys, the oligarchies, who were the private owners of wealth and capital assets. And it sort of came apart. It didn't work so well with the nomenclatura in the Soviet Union. They imploded in 1998. But Bernie is very much more than anybody else. He's all for all the organizations that represent ownership as an institution for the masses, rather than just labor. Or the labor theory of value that informed the. I don't know if you can follow all this, but what's the relationship between private ownership of a capital asset in a world where so much of the productive process is going toward robotization and assets that are able to, if you have ownership of them, they yield money and demand capability for people to buy what can be produced, and they're also displacing people in a major way that Keynes warned about. So those are part of the political context in which we live, and so I just mention all of that. I think it's but that he's interested in ownership. I would like to talk to him about that. Is it wrong? Is ownership in and of itself an evil thing? and that all value comes from labor, or is there something? Why is he such a proponent? And it's a major part of his thinking, and he doesn't seem to ever address what it means to him, ownership in the sense of a citizen having ownership of a stock certificate of a company that's producing as a way of getting money to that person. You understand? That's one of the capitalist things. Goes to the oligarchs or so forth. But do you understand what I'm saying?
Well,
that's an issue that is not seems to be confronted by the socialists who think everything should be government.
Right.
And we'll throw out the bad guys.
Right, right.
And we'll have everything in the hands of us, the good guys, and get rid of those guys, those oligarchs, that private sector.
Right.
So that's a conundrum that's facing the human condition now. And he's in an interesting position. I'd like to find out what his attitude toward ownership is as an institution.
Well, I think we really need a lot of discourse and a lot of space to process this and think this through. I think there's a lot of shades of gray here, but I think it shouldn't. For me, I don't like to be an extremist in terms of either capitalism or socialism per se. Some sort of mixture might be nice. Now, when the government gives like
a mixed economy.
A mixed economy. Yeah. For example, when the government gave bailouts to those Wall Street firms who tanked the economy, you could say that's a form of socialism, right? When banks get bailed out, that's like a socialism for the 1%. So these words are very murky, and they become very difficult and confusing. For a period of time, socialism was associated with Russia, who was our arch enemy, and Stalin, who was
absolutely,
he was no picnic.
The Bolsheviks.
I mean, Stalin was a pretty evil person, and he was so
30 million people
killed. So
and the collectivization was horrible.
And at the same time, it was not a purely socialist economy.
Right.
It was a totalitarian,
we got to get to a definition of what socialism really means, is what I'm talking about, in a way.
Yeah, we have to redefine it. I think we need to restructure our economy. I think we need to make only things that we need. We have to realize that there's a finite planet.
How about things that we want?
Well, I don't know.
How do you deal with that?
I think the main reality is we have a planet that's dying, that has finite resources.
Yeah, well, that's an issue. That's
we're facing ecological collapse.
Well, that's another issue. The global warming thing is really manifesting now.
Yes.
Pope Frank's getting behind it,
which is great.
That's encouraging.
I think he's critical of capitalism.
It's not respectful to call him Frank?
You called him Frank?
Yeah, right. No, I saw it on some comedy shows, but it's an enduring term. It's an enduring term because he's the best, man. I love him.
We have a producer named Frank. Frankly speaking.
Yeah, right.
He's not a pope, but he's. But anyway, so, I think we need to have a solid education as a foundation. People don't know these terms.
Yeah.
They need to be educated. We took a wonderful course with Stanley Ronowitz at the Breck Forum called The History of the Left.
Is that turned down? That's closed down, eh? That used to be a great institute. It was in Westbeth.
It used to be at Westbeth, but now they've actually reconfigured, and they're in Brooklyn.
Oh, really?
So they're part of the Brooklyn Commons.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that.
So Stanley Ronowitz, he continues to give lectures there. He recently was lecturing on Marx. But he gave a history of the left class, and I learned about people like Norman Thomas, who I didn't know about.
Oh, he ran forever.
Popular socialist candidate for president.
He was on president all the time he was running.
He got millions of votes, this guy, and well-dressed, always, Oh. So I just think that, I think he had thin ties. No.
Thin ties were in, I'm going to get back looking like Frank and Peter Lawford and the gang back then, Frank's, Anyway,
But Harold, I wanted to read something just very briefly that I brought with me.
All
this is a flyer. I did not bring a book with me today.
Okay.
I'm working on a new book, by the way.
Oh, you are? What's the book about?
It's about fame. And it's a reconceptualization of fame. Because I think fame has gotten out of whack. I think this whole fame for the sake of fame thing, and this celebrity conscious that infects our culture, and he's famous and she's famous. Trump is famous, so let's make him president. Why? Because he's famous. That's ridiculous, And shows like American Idol. I'll never forget, I was in a school. I was in a school in Union City, New Jersey, Emerson High School. I was subbing there. this was about 5 years ago. I was in the teacher's room, and I wanted to have a conversation about teaching, right? And I couldn't even get a word in because the teachers were talking about American Idol. They were, did you see American Idol? And I'm watching this like, it was like, this is the educators of our children. They're watching American Idol. So I think we need to reimagine and reconceptualize fame.
And you're putting a book together, right?
I'm writing a book on that topic now.
Good for you. Okay. That's a big subject. It is.
Thank you. And I guess I know something about it because my grandmother's benefactor was part of the birth of the Hollywood star system.
Wow, really?
Yeah. She was in a film in 1912 that was put out by Adolf Zucker.
Wow, he's huge,
So she was part of this, and at the time, Zucker's vision of Hollywood, he put the stars of theater at the top in his movies. So my grandmother's benefactor was a serious, legitimate stage actress. And he recruited her and Sarah Bernhardt to be his first two movies in 1912. And that was the original star system was constructed to privilege real art and culture at the top.
Like from the theater.
Yeah, from the theater. And
Frank Craven, he's here?
I love Frank Craven.
You know the Cravens?
Of course, they're related to the Barrymores. Is that?
Yeah, well, they were good. They were parallel friends back to the time of John Wilkes Booth in the theater. Yeah. I
love Frank, and Frank to me is very dramatic and theatrical, and he's also, very much an activist and an artist, and he's a good man. I like him very much. And
I was at a party with him. There was a guy there, and they had a place up in Salt Point. We were there. It just reeked in a good way. They had a room down there where there was all kinds of things. There's tables with cards and stuff, and it just reeked of intelligentsia, talking. It was just wonderful, going back to the turn of the century and everything. It was wonderful, intellectual. But we were at a party with Frank's, and there was an older guy there who had known Frank's father. And he was a little over the top with, alcohol.
Okay.
I don't drink or anything, but so I walked him back to Grand Central. He had to catch the train. And he informed me that in the Craven family, they go back.
Yes.
Like the Barrymores.
Yes.
And there would be Frank, and then Frank would have a son, and he would name his first son John.
John, yes.
And then he would name his first son Frank.
Okay.
And then John, and then Frank, and then John back into the 19th century. And Frank's grandfather, his father was John, and his grandfather was Frank Craven, who was in many, many, many Hollywood. I think he got nominated for an Academy Award as a narrator in Our Town.
Our Town, yeah. He played the stage manager.
And he's got up on his wall, Frank got up on his wall, a letter from W.C. Fields.
No kidding?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
And it was a letter to Dorothy, who was apparently Frank's wife. And he said, Dorothy, darling, I don't know how you can put up with that retrobate or something to that effect. Frank Craven, his grandfather. But he was a friend. Yeah, he was a major actor. I saw him in a film on Turner Classic the other night, Frank's grandfather.
No kidding, the grandfather.
Yeah. And then there would have been John, and then Frank, and then John.
Sure.
And he's Frank. Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't run off.
No, that's okay.
But what are you're talking? That's a good book. Read that. That thing about fame. That's very good.
It's got to be reimagined and reconceptualized. I think the people that ought to be elevated now for greater recognition.
Yeah.
Because all fame is like who. People know your name. People are more conscious of you because somehow the society has elevated you because of your work. Okay.
Yeah, and it had to have something to do with public values. I guess,
think it should connect more with public values, and I think it should be connected. For example, I think people should be more familiar with teachers, and scientists, and psychoanalysts, and social workers.
You're an intellectual.
People who are intellectuals should be more well known, which they're not well known in our country. In France, they're more well known, but in our country, they're not so well known. Actors, yes, who are serious actors, who are good at their craft, but now we elevate, the bimbos, and we elevate these people who are just manufactured stars. Okay, and so what you get is what the Romans called bread and circuses.
Yeah, right.
You get a colonization of consciousness, right? So in my college classes, I'm looking at a room full of students who know everything.
Where are you teaching?
Essex County College in Newark. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And for example, as a good example, Amiri Baraka.
Yes,
one of the great poets and activists, of our time.
He's Jersey, isn't he?
From Newark, New Jersey.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Born and raised in Newark. Okay. He passed away last year.
Yeah, sad.
He passed away, but his son is mayor now. His son Roz is mayor of Newark. Okay, but I find it appalling that so few of my students have heard of this great poet and activist, even though they're living in the town where Miri Baraka was from. Their educations are deficient because their schools never informed them of this person.
Yeah, I was sad. My dear friend who lived in our building, Ornette Coleman, just passed.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear
that. I was really sorry. Yeah, they had a wonderful Riverside Church. That's amazing.
Oh, I love Riverside Church.
It was jammed with the ceremony for him.
Yes.
He passed. I was really sorry. He was a great jazz guy, you know.
Wow.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I didn't.
Yeah, that's okay, Harold.
What do you?
This is a flyer. I want to show this to the people.
Yeah, what is the flyer? Yeah, what's it about?
I just made this up today.
Okay,
actually,
good. Yeah, right off the press, right?
Hot off the presses.
Yeah.
And the title is An Optimist's Guide to Reclaiming Our Democracy.
That's a very good
and communities.
That's a very good against the program we taped in this studio
so
before.
This is the dialectic.
Do you count yourself an optimist?
I am. I'm an optimist in the John Dewey sense. Walt Whitman, that kind of optimist that you have to manifest a vision of what Aronowitz calls a radical futurity. Radical futurity.
Right.
You know, the might be, not just get stuck in what is. Marcuse talked about the ought to be, what might be.
Ought to be.
Sense of possibility.
The sense of possibility. I think we got a poem going here, don't we?
That's right. Well, what was it? Emily Dickinson said, this is a quote that I absolutely love by Emily Dickinson. She says,
dazzle gradually?
No, this one she says, where imagination lights the slow fuse of the possible.
That is good, isn't it?
And what do we get imagination from? We get the imagination from the arts, from reading novels, from listening to music, from watching plays, and seeing good films. Imagination that lights the slow fuse of the possible.
Yeah, you deal with all of that in Public Voice Salon.
In my dialogues, in my teaching, and my pedagogy is very much based on the arts and storytelling. I like people to tell stories from their own lives.
Yeah.
And one way to learn...
They do that in some of those salons, don't they, in a way?
Absolutely.
Will you pass the mic around?
Pass it around.
It's just spontaneous. Or on park benches, you do it with
we've done it
effect,
on park benches. We interviewed...
Amazing who you can find on a park bench in Newark.
Newark, we found Randy Credico
Randy
in Washington
Square
funny. Park. Randy
Credico is so
was hilarious,
he
absolutely hilarious.
Funny,
you know, running for governor.
Yeah, right.
And with all his shtick and with his imitations.
Yeah.
You know, Randy was at the Left Forum this year.
I know he was. I saw him sitting on the steps.
He was on a panel.
Yeah.
He was fabulous.
Yeah.
He was fabulous. He was with that guy Lionel. Remember the guy Lionel from he was on TV.
Yeah.
But he's great. So I just want to read.
I'm sorry. We keep getting
a couple of quick bullet points on it. The An Optimist Guide to Reclaiming Our Democracy in Communities. Shut off your TV. Except when Harold is on.
Well, no.
Unplug your iPod and join together in a hopeful dialogue with neighbors, friends, and strangers who are potential friends to renew our civic life and explore possibilities for a better world that might be more just, caring, and peaceful. Learn how the failures in our media and education system demand that new forms of educational, cultural, and social life be created. In particular, spaces for people to connect, share ideas, learn from each other, and keep alive a spark of hope for better days to come. Discover the amazing connection between simple conversation and the preservation of democracy. And fourth, understand better the humanizing role of the arts and how imagination can, as philosopher Maxine Greene once said, help us to, quote, think of things as if they could be otherwise.
Yeah, right.
Think of things as if they could be otherwise.
Yeah. And what are you proposing? A gathering, a meeting, or just let's do it that way, or what?
It's a meeting.
A physical getting together of people. Where and what?
And everywhere.
Oh, okay.
Everywhere and anywhere. People's homes, in cafes, in bookstores,
it's a call
in galleries.
It's a call to action. Yeah, right.
A call to action for the community to shut off the damn TV, to pull those iPods out of your ears, to get back into face-to-face conversation, to talk about the problems in our world. I'm reading a wonderful book by Parker Palmer,
I don't know, yeah.
Called Healing the Heart of Democracy. And he's also calling for this creating of communities where we have to nurture each other, you see. We have to be able to be vulnerable with each other to manifest a vision of this utopian better world that we're trying to bring into being. But if we talk about this with certain people, they're gonna disparage us and say, you can't do that, we can't have that, and there's a lot of negativity out there. So the people who do have a hopeful vision have to come together and nurture each other and keep each other strong. And so democracy relies on dialogue and discourse.
Yes.
And I think we need to create these kind of clubs and institutions and organizations. I think there ought to be once a week a conversation going on.
Yeah, but you need a physical place to get together?
Or it could be people's homes. There's a lot of lonely people out there who are sitting watching TV and are really bored because a lot of what's on TV, you know, is boring, you know, and corporatized
I have a little thing
predictable.
I enter in a little thing from Jersey.
Okay.
Okay. About 15 years ago, when I was still doing television, I had in my little office a little thing up on the wall. And what it was from the musician Bruce Springsteen.
Yes.
There was the lyrics from his song.
Okay.
And the song said, "My baby and I got married. We built us a bourgeois house in the suburbs. The cable man came, and there were 57 channels and nothing on. On the channel in New York City, public access, or on Time Warner anyway, there's 1,998 channels. 1,998 channels.
Oh my
Think
God.
that's enough?
I think that's ridiculous.
And you could add to, in many ways of thinking, in terms of the kind of things you're talking about.
Right.
It might be that there's not very much on that's relevant to the kind of values you're talking about.
Yeah, and I
that's
think
what I'm just saying. Instead of 57, instead of 3, it used to be 3.
Sure.
It used to be none.
It was simpler when it was 3. Yeah, it used to be none.
It used to be none.
75 years ago.
None, yeah.
70. My dad used to remember when Milton Berle would come on.
I remember Milton.
Tuesday nights, Uncle Milty. He said one neighbor had the set, and everybody would crowd into their living room and watch it.
Or in a saloon, or in a. They would have television sets in the window, and people would stand a crowd and look. Television. I've been through it. Well, I don't know. Do you think is that going backwards? Or do we not want to? I mean, there is a great deal to be said for the advancement of communication.
Yeah.
What I'm thinking of is that I had Maggie, you have my friend Maggie, and I brought it to her attention. There was a channel, there was a program that was on a DVD, and it was from one of the channels that are out there, commercial channel, but they had put together a thing, and it said they had a film that was played, and I think it was with the ads out and everything like that.
Okay.
But title was the history of the world in 2 hours. And
wow.
It was magnificent. I play it, and it starts, and it goes, and the input is from scientists who are leading edge, understanding what they're talking about. It's very meaningful, and they start with the Big Bang, 13.7 billion years ago, and they go through with the graphics and everything is being done, and they're talking about the form of the elements and all the kind of thing, the whole history of what goes on. Then it goes down through through it, and it's all really good graphics and really entertaining, and the narrative is good. As far as you have a general knowledge of what this thing is talking about, they're accurate, and it could be modified. But I think, and it was just absolutely fascinating for 2 hours. It was really, really, really educational in the full sense of the word. I mean, you could be educated that way.
Sure.
So I don't think we want to throw the baby out with the bath.
No.
Or maybe it's just that there's a place for that. And I think we're going into an electronic communication, whether we like it or not.
Sure.
The thing with it's all coming out of the computer, and there's no stopping. It's going exponential. Yeah. I don't think we can put that genie back in the bottle. But couldn't we have 1,998 channels with interesting stuff on Gertrude Stein and really interesting stuff?
Right.
And it's stuff that you could learn.
Well, we're reaching.
They can learn.
Yeah.
But mostly all those channels are trying to sell you something against arthritis or something.
Let's talk about this before. I know we're probably going to run out of time, but I want to put in as a problem. But time is a big problem. But you and I think, Harold, have begun a conversation here that I hope continues. You and I, off the air and on the air, because we could go into deeper
and with our colleagues,
and with our and maybe through salons. But I think Ed Schultz was fired. Ed Schultz on MSNBC. He was the most progressive guy or woman, even more so than Rachel Maddow, because he was talking about the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is this really bad treaty. It's like NAFTA on steroids.
Mr. Obama's in favor of it.
Which is very strange.
I'd like to understand
I'm
that.
disappointed
Why
in him.
is that?
I'm very disappointed.
I don't understand it.
But anyway, because Ed was talking about this, he got fired. Comcast owns MSNBC.
Comcast, I don't know who that is. Is that Dolan's? No, I don't know who that is.
I don't know who but they're for the TPP. See?
Okay,
so that's
I think most of the leadership isn't it?
Well,
it makes you. The political and economic leadership is for it.
I don't think so. I think Bernie Sanders is against it.
Bernie Sanders isn't part of the leadership.
But
he may become
a senator.
Hopefully
he will.
But
I think Trump came out against the TPP.
Well,
I think Trump is against the TPP.
Yeah, but anyway,
I don't think Soros would like it.
Oh, okay.
So there are wealthy, powerful people who go either way.
And you got the thing brewing now. It's going to be out this week, and all that is the thing about Iran. So there's a lot of differentiation there too. But anyway, go ahead.
But this is why it's so vital that we build a viable progressive network that reaches as many people as Fox and MSNBC.
Well, that's you're reaching pretty far.
I have big dreams. I have big dreams, Harold. I never thought I would have a TV show. My dream came true. I never thought I would be a professor. I would be a published writer. My dreams, I dream. You got to go for the gold. And right now,
what were you dreaming before you dreamed the big dream?
The impossible dream. Donkey.
Is that your song? You got a copyright.
I got a little Don Quixote in me. I got a little Don Quixote. But I think the story now, Harold, is that I heard it would cost about $50 million in order to have a channel that would reach as many people as Fox and CNBC.
Well, I don't know. You better get those figures verified.
Well, I could. But look, you get a guy like
if you're serious.
You get a guy like George Soros. Can put his hand in his pocket and pull out pocket change, and for him, pocket change, and create a viable progressive network where the things that you're saying on this show would reach millions and millions of people instead of thousands. What does it mean to be progressive?
What does that mean? What is progressive? I mean,
not to be bought and sold. Not to be bought and sold by corporate America. Not to be told what to do.
What to happen to corporate America? I just got finished reading Stress Test by. Is it, who's the guy that, damn, isn't that crazy? The guy that did all the negotiating at the Federal Reserve when the economy collapsed. I can't think of it now. It's really crazy. It's just escaped me. But it was and Mr. Obama, the first thing he did after, I guess maybe the first thing he did when he came in 2008 was save the automobile industry from the collapse and so forth. And then what he did, and what they did then, and the thrust of the stress test, he wanted the oligarchs, and Mr. Obama accepted it, and the system did, the leadership of the system, that they had to have that. Well, Paulson was involved. Henry Paulson, when they had that 3-page thing that came out in September of 2008, they had to have that 3-page thing passed by the Congress and the Senate in 3 days and on the president's desk and signed, or the whole economic system of the world was going to fall totally apart into utter anarchy, and had to be, above all else, all other considerations had to be done. Capitalism had to be saved, or else. And it was the same with Mr. Roosevelt when he did the New Deal. He saved capitalism. Now, people who want to have something progressive would think, what the hell is there to say? They're a bunch of oligarchs stealing everything. That's the riff.
Sure.
In terms of progressive.
Yeah.
But do you think that's true?
Well,
do you think they had to save capitalism from its own, and so forth,
well,
or not?
If
what's the role for the oligarchs?
I don't care about the oligarchs. Well, I think the oligarchs need to fade out.
I think it's
they're
historical.
Going to, I think we need to stop worshiping wealth and genuflecting to these
not
oligarchs.
Not worshiping. What I'm asking is, what's to happen to them?
Wealth.
Is it? We have to give up on the idea of an ecumenical thing that includes everybody. Bernie Sanders believes in ownership. Private property ownership. He's not a socialist in the sense of let's get rid of the private sector.
Okay, but it's
Do we want to get rid of the private sector? We don't want that. A lot has been done by we want a mixed economy. Don't we? And what does it mean to be progressive? I'm not sure progressives know what they mean when they say progressive. They just want to get the bad guys out or something.
I think the inequality of wealth has reached such an extreme where
it's
you
absurd.
have where you have
it's absurd.
Where you have 1% of the population, and I think like the average CEO makes 500 times the CEO.
It's
absolutely insane and absurd.
Absolutely.
And I think an argument might be made, and I think this book by Thomas Piketty is fascinating.
Thomas Piketty is great.
Is making the rounds. He's building on Marx's thesis, but I think
he it's not so important that the Marxists you and I are reading it. What they're reading, that book, as I understand it, I don't know, from distance. It's being read by the leaders. We're not the leaders.
Right.
They're leaders. And it's being read by the leaders with chagrin.
That's true.
Which is going to shake them from their absolute certainty that they have all the truth. And so it may be able to have a thing that can we go towards something that's more ecumenically including even the bad guys? I think we have to get to that if we're going to get to the utopia. Well, maybe.
Can I say something controversial?
By all means,
it might help. Your ratings might spike when I say this. Okay, I'm a big fan of this new writer who's become famous, overnight, practically. Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Never know who.
He was on Charlie Rose the other night.
Yeah.
He wrote a book called Between the World and Me. He wrote this beautiful book. He's a black man who wrote a book to his son. It's a letter to his son about racism.
Huge.
He rejects the Obama theory that we're now in a post-racial world, and
they're shooting them down with alarming regularity. Are they not in the streets all across the nation?
It's a radical book. It's only 150 pages long.
Right.
It's become a bestseller.
Good. Yeah.
Okay. He was on the cover of New York Magazine last week.
Miss Alexander wrote a good book on Jim Crow.
Jim Crow. But here's the thing about Ta-Nehisi Coates. He also is an advocate of reparations. He first became notable for writing an article in New York Magazine about reparations. So if there is an argument for reparations for black folk, right?
Who was the fellow that used to do that? There was a black guy that did that too, and he couldn't get anywhere.
So here's my controversial...
it couldn't get there practically.
Here's what I'm going to say right now on your show. I'm going to launch this, plant the seed into the world.
Okay.
I think there ought to be reparations for everybody. I think...
Worldwide?
I think redistribution is something that could be looked at now more rationally. If you look at over the past 30 years, how much money has gone to the top 1%, and if you look at, there could be a legal argument that bribery was at work here. That, in other words, politicians who take money from corporations and
Citizens
then
United.
pass laws that benefit the 1%. When the Glass-Steagall Act was repealed,
99, I think.
a huge amount of money went
Clinton.
up. Clinton. So now, what if we say, all right, you guys, you had your fun with that money. Now it's going to come back to the common good.
Well, that's the thing.
And then also corporations who have failed to pay taxes, who put a P.O. box in Bermuda and route the money and route their their letters through just to get offshoring their money to get tax havens. All of that money that they failed to pay, I think should come back now and put it into a pool and distribute it to all Americans, that this is the money that was stolen from them. Stolen from them. So and I think
that's something that somebody could run on.
Controversial thesis, but with Bernie running as a socialist, I think more is possible now.
I don't know that it's fair to say, is he running for he's not. A socialist is too vague. I mean, I'm not sure what we mean by a socialist. That's what I'm saying, because I'm one who don't think there's much. I mean, you can go that way and think that way in terms of justice, and certainly it's called for in terms of all the disorder that's there and the lack of justice and so forth, particularly for the people who've been suffering for so long and the artists and everything like that. But I think the real challenge is to get to something that's more ecumenical, that's more able to be inclusive. I think you got to get towards something that can be inclusive of everybody, including the bad guys. I mean, the dialectic of finding the bad guys. There's so many bad things. It's all a system we've inherited out of history. But what we have is a situation that offers tremendous capability of taking care of everybody in a way that has never been. There's something about the future that is not characteristic in our institutions we've inherited out of history. And that future is something that is, and I think it would want to be a mixed economy. You'd want to have a private sector and a public sector. So I'm not sure if socialism is what we want, or what it means to be progressive, for that matter, or what's their attitude toward private property, or what's their attitude toward ownership of a piece of asset. The Piketty's theme is that the technology is going exponentially, and it's displacing labor in the production process. And the labor theory of value informs the whole left. And the value of the labor being put into a thing where it's all algorithms being done, they can fill out forms. They don't need bureaucrats and so forth to the degree that they need. So the Piketty's saying the major problem is being read by the leaders of the world is that they can make a tremendous capability to provide life support for everybody in ecology and a really good thing, but they don't have a way of distributing effective buying power or demand to the masses of the people to clear the market. That's the problem.
Well, we have to get.
And one way you can do it is make owners out of them. That would be one thing that would appeal to the traditional love or the traditional hold with the private with property or ownership. That could be included. And here he is representing the masses best, Saunders, and he's very, very, very encouraged and invested in his thinking with the ownership thing, the idea of people should own stock. And they should be tied into the productive of the future rather than being tied only to the past.
We got 1 minute left. We got the 1 minute warning. I just want to say it's been wonderful to be with you here today.
That's very good.
Harold, thank you. Yeah, I just want people to come. What you're doing is wonderful. When you called me the other day, I was so happy to hear your voice on the machine because, it's been a while since I've been on.
Yeah.
But I want to...
No, but I follow you, young man. You're really coming along great. Yeah, welcome aboard and keep going. It's really good.
Thank you. Keep up your work, too, in leadership.
Well, we're limping along,
But this has got to go out there more. I think it's got to be...
And public access should be supported by one and all. It's a place where you can go and produce programming and not think about money. That's really
it's a source of education.
That's really good subversive for the producer.
This is the new university, I think. You said that once before, and I agree.
Did I?
This is
if I didn't, I should have.
I think so.
And if I didn't, Bredin will. If I don't say Bredin, I'm sorry. Right?
Okay.
Bredin, well, any name, it's a good thing. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Harold. It's such a pleasure.
And don't you ever forget Claudia.
She's the best. I love you, Claudia. I love her.
She's
wonderful.
Okay, we're coming back again. Well, tomorrow, please turn in. Thanks, John, for coming in. So pleasure. Let's go out and build a better world, right?
Let's do that.
Before that?
Let's go have a beer first.
Well, that might be a good idea. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, over now.